There's something about that vulnerability
Yeah.
and it meaning that we did something wrong. And that vulnerability in standing up and saying, you know what, I need this flexibility in my life, or I need help. It is a big thing.
Welcome to A Sister's Love, the podcast that helps women who are healing by having those deep conversations, giving practical advice and words of encouragement. Come on, let's talk about it. Hello, my beautiful sisters. On today's episode of A Sister's Love podcast, we have a guest, and her name is Kristina, and she has a series of children's books that talks about communication between the parent and the child. But before we dive into that, I want to start by introducing myself to my first-time listeners. Hi, I am Rose Jones, and I'm your host here at A Sister's Love podcast. And I just want to let you know that I'm just a woman who's trying to inspire women through my story of being a survivor of domestic violence, battling PTSD, and self-hate, and trying to keep it real about the things that I am struggling and facing in my life right now. I created this podcast to create a safe place for women to heal and tell their story. So if you are looking for a place to heal, then you are in the right place. I would love for you to become a weekly listener. To do that, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you will not miss another episode of A Sister's Love podcast.
Hi, my beautiful sister. I would like to introduce you guys to Kristina. Kristina, if you give us a moment to just quickly introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Kristina Lucia. Thank you for having me. I am an author, artist, and creator. My primary focus of my brand is my children's series. I actually create the toys for the characters as well. The mission is communication. And how I got there is it came from my own healing path. I recognized from the way that I was brought up, I didn't know how to talk about my feelings. I was raised in an environment where feelings weren't spoken of. There was a lot of miscommunication. And when I hit, for lack of a better analogy, one of my bottom moments, it led me into therapy. It led me into healing. And through my healing path, both work in and out of sessions, I've learned the importance of really understanding how to identify and communicate my own feelings as well as those of others. And seeing that revolution in my own life, seeing how relationships that didn't exist do exist, I realized this importance of that communication is an evolving skill. It's something that we always need to work on. And that inspired my mission of communication. And that's the focus of why I'm here, why I reached out to you, because I'm always looking for platforms where I can share that mission and share pieces of my journey that are applicable to the conversation.
That is awesome. So when you say communication, are you talking about like communication with children or communicate with adults or just like overall communication?
Overall communication, my books do focus on the parent-child relationship. However, what I do stress a lot is that it's not just the child and parent. It's you and I now as meeting for the first time. It's our friends, it's our siblings, it's our significant others, our bosses, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is that by focusing on the child-parent relationship, because it's so easy to see it in the child's boat, because a child is evolving, they're learning, they're growing into their full selves. However, what we forget, once we cross the threshold of adulthood, we're still working on all those things. We don't just graduate and we're perfect. It is a constant. So that's why, yes, I focus on the child-parent relationship, but I do feel it's important to recognize that we need to still work on that. And that's why when I write and I'm illustrating and I write to different blogs as well, among other things, I do focus on the parent as much as I do on the child, because it's so easy to say, and that's part of my healing journey, I realized and learned, is that it is a two-way street. A lot of times people would blame me for things I was going through, things I was doing, like something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you. There never was a moment of, okay, why are you doing this? Yeah. Okay, what happened at home that caused this? And through my healing work, I've been able to do that for myself. And so when I get those questions, that's where I say my serenity prayer, and I'm like, you know what? I have a choice to walk away from this. And I do believe in books because they are a first step. Reading a book is an intimate thing, whether we're reading it solely. I'm an avid reader myself as well as a writer. I always have a book. Like I'm the woman that's on vacation with like at least 3 books in her suitcase. Like that's just how I roll. And like I was on my way back from a trip last year. One of my trips that happened to be last August. I'll never forget this man sitting next to me said, "Well, of course you're a writer." I'm like, "Well, how do you know that?" It's like, "Because you're always reading." Like your nose is like buried in a book. But there is that intimacy. However, the bigger piece is taking a step. I read the book. Let me practice it in my life. And it's hard. It's not, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's easy, but the other thing that I've realized from this journey as well is that we do have choice and responsibilities. We have a choice to pick up and read the material, but we also have a responsibility to go and act it. Like, perfect example, I was a few minutes late to this recording, and I hate being late. It bothers me, but I made a choice to just work to the very last second before I logged on. But at the same time, I did have a responsibility of expressing it to you. Yeah. Expressing that I'm late. I sincerely apologize. I was just trying to get this one thing to a stopping point. But again, that's choice and responsibility, and there is that beauty of taking responsibility for our choices and recognizing we're all human. And, respecting each other's spaces. And I think with the writing, it's a first step towards that. So that's a long way of saying, what do I mean by communication?
Yeah. With me, the biggest thing for me was with the communication is apologizing to my kids. So a lot of parents don't think that they have to apologize to their children because I'm the parent, you're the child, and no matter if I'm wrong or right, it is what it is. And just taking that step to showing them, mommy, do apologize, give them the space to apologize too, and see that it's okay to make mistakes. And even though I'm adult, I make mistakes too. So having that line of apologies and keeping that relationship open, stuff like that was my biggest thing, because you want to be perfect. You don't want your kids to think that you're making mistakes and stuff like that. But not apologizing is also teaching them bad communication also.
Absolutely. And there's something about that vulnerability and admitting that we did something wrong. And that vulnerability in standing up and saying, you know what, I need this flexibility in my life, or I need help. It is a big thing. I had somebody just last week give me a hard time about a situation. And I told them, you have to be gentle on me, because the reason why I stuck there is I didn't see an exit sign. I didn't see a way out. And also something else in my personal life that I'm working on is community. I grew up in an environment where I didn't have community. I was bullied constantly. And when you don't have community, meaning people that support you and people that will back you, it is scary sometimes to take that step. And what I'm learning from even in my own, still in this journey, is to be able to say, you know what, this is what I need. And that's the other thing too with work, because my work is focused towards children. Because I'll be honest, I'm Catholic. I'm a Catholic woman, have been my entire life. However, in addition to my strong Catholic faith, I also do 12-step work. And it's really beautiful because they do coincide. If you really, as a religious woman, I really believe in God. I believe in a higher power. I believe in faith. And that's really what 12-step work is too. It's about putting your faith into something beyond you and understanding you can't control everything. And understanding also that you have a responsibility and a choice for that choice, and you have responsibility for that choice. And so also in line of what that 12-step work is, I do a lot of inner child and critical parent work. And part of that is recognizing me, because my little girl comes out. It's human. It's normal. There are people's children come at me. It's normal. However, when you point my tangent is because I work. Oh, thank you. I should get to the point here. I'm trying to make sure I explain it, because I realize sometimes when I say inner child critical parent, people get me what are you talking about?
No, I totally understand. No, I get it.
Yeah, I just want to be respectful to people listening to me.
The people. So you could go into elaborate a little bit more when they talk about inner child, because a lot of people don't understand that our inner child is like the child that got neglected, or when you get trauma, something happened to you, and that child stops aging. So you stop aging at the age that you experience trauma. So that child, like, even though I'm 36 right now, I was traumatized at like 6. So at some point, that 6-year-old girl is still traumatized inside of me. And until you heal that 6-year-old, that you are still walking around with that 6-year-old trauma. So it's like pretty much doing that inner child work is healing that 6-year-old or that 7-year-old or 10-year-old that experienced that trauma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is like you could be raised in the perfect leave it to beaver house. You still have an inner child and a critical parent.
Yeah.
And that's something else that I realized, even with healing from my traumas, my little girl is still there, and that's okay. And that's the thing too about working on my children's books. I don't only write my books, I illustrate. That's why I was a few minutes late, everybody, is because I'm illustrating right now. I'm illustrating book 8. And so I was like, let me just paint this one color so that way it dries and I can shade after we're done recording. Like I'm in illustration mode right now when I'm not doing other stuff. And when people that have seen my books so far, people that see my writing, people see the toys I create, their little kids come out at me. It's you should do this, you should do that. It's you should create that character. It's everything from like, well, I've always wanted to write a book and And it is an exercise for myself. Just take a step back and recognize the kids are coming at me, and being able to set boundaries and being able to say, you know what? I'm an artist. I have enough ideas to fly to the moon and back 10 times over without your one idea. Like I have more ideas than you know what to do with. The other piece of the puzzle that I do patient people with. So part of inner child and critical parent, which is when you're doing 12-step work, is that your inner child is playfulness. We all need to play at any age. Play is not frivolous. Like as adults, I'm sorry, Apple Store, it is an adult playground, people. It is an adult playground. Like that's why I'm going on weekends. Like I had to go into Apple weeks ago and I was like, nope, I'm going in during the week. I'm not doing a weekend. Like I love the store, love Apple products, but let me tell you, it's like a playground in there. That's your inner child coming out. Even as grown men and women, it comes out. However, our critical parent can set the discipline. And that's the beauty of being able to work with the two. So as an artist, and I started drawing formally when I was 7 years old. And I was learning advanced concepts at the age of 7, which I'm still working on to this day. And that I've been trained in a gazillion times since it was first introduced to me at 7. However, the reason why I've been able to do what I do is because of discipline and playfulness. And it's that harmony of working. And that's the other piece of 12-step work, is that, like you said so beautifully, you need to heal the trauma that little child went through. However, the little girl and your critical parent, they're never going to go away. The beauty of healing them is so that they can live in harmony with you. They're all living in harmony. They're not fighting you. They're not freaking out. Because it could be, I have a friend where every time he goes home, he comes back and his little boy comes out because he's a neat freak, and I'm OCD too, so I get it. But that little boy comes out, whereas because he hasn't dealt with it. Whereas I recognize, like when I'm at one of my family members' houses now, I recognize like I'm OCD. So luckily, so is my family, but we all clean differently. And my little girl, I was watching one of my siblings clean a counter that I had just cleaned, and I didn't get triggered. And it was so amazing not getting triggered. And my inner voice went, shh, it's fine. They didn't see you wipe down the counter. It's okay. It's their house. They can wipe down the counter a second time. Let it go. And it comes out, especially during holidays, like my inner child comes out a lot of holidays. So that's like a lot of memories, a lot of gathering, a lot of like, I want to do it. I want to mix the stew or whatever, or in our case, gravy. I'm from an Italian family. I want to mix the gravy. You know, it comes out, and I'm a cook, I'm a baker. So I get really involved in it. And again, my little girl has moments where she wants to do everything. And I'm like, it's okay. You're going to share. This person, you're already doing the main dish. This person can do something. It's okay. You don't have to be like doing everything, you know, but that's the beauty. And by doing that, it prevents fights from happening. It prevents a snap at that family member who's just wiping down the counter. I know it sounds silly, but it's always the small, it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's the small daily things that I feel when we're able not to get triggered or not to get like, oh, they didn't fold that towel right. You know what I mean? Like when we're able to let those things go and be like, oh, okay. We're able to have deeper conversation, like you said about with your children, of realizing like, wait, I made a mistake. I'm gonna say I'm sorry. I'm gonna take ownership for like my mistake. And there's something beautiful about that that allows us to grow.
Yeah, when you talk about triggers, like, is it anything like you recommend for people to start like the process of identifying their triggers? And when they do get those triggers, like some things that they could say to themselves or communicate with themselves or others so that it won't be so impactful or so harmful in their process of healing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was recognizing my triggers. I agree. I do believe, and then the bigger step is asking why. Another daily activity that I find has helped me, and I still have it on my desktop. Like I refer to it when I'm writing, I refer to it when I'm struggling with finding the right word. You can Google the feelings list, and it's all the negative and the positive feelings. And pulling up that, saying, okay, you know what, I'm upset because my mother-in-law folded the towels wrong. They're visiting, they're folding the towels wrong. Okay, pull out that feelings list. Do I feel aggravated? Do I feel frustrated? Am I raged? And being able to identify an actual feeling is a really big step forward. And then it could be the why. And then I shouldn't say it could be the why. Then the next step is that why. And I find for me, the reason for a lot of my triggers is that I was always constantly, I'm an overachiever. And the traumas I went through only enhanced me being an overachiever. Like that was a big realization in my therapy work with my therapist, with my current 12-step work. And so I realized, like, for example, when it's the silliest trigger. So the first book I illustrated, which actually is book 10 in my series, so it'll be coming out next year because I have 6 books coming out this year, which is really exciting. And then I have a coloring book and a coloring activity book also coming out, which I'm pulling together manuscripts now when I'm not illustrating book 8. But anyways, that's another story. I remember a team I was working with on my books, and I left them because there were a lot of unkept promises, there were flags, things weren't being right. Again, a lot of inner kids coming at me and critical parents. I was like, you know what, this isn't right for me. I need to walk away. Yeah. And I did. And I found another team. But I remember one of the people I was working with, the old team, said to me, one of my illustrations, he said, your lines aren't straight, meaning the lines on the kitchen floor. And to this day, I get upset when I hear his voice in my head. And I recognize that I get upset, I get triggered because it's that you're not good enough. You're not good. Your art's not good enough. Your work's not good enough. And I was constantly told that. I've been drawing formally since I was 7 years old. I started baking and cooking around the same age. By the time I was 12 years old, I could make homemade pizza dough from scratch, which for the bakers in the room, the cooks in the room know that's like kneading dough is a complex skill. And I learned by watching people. And that's another trigger for me, even to this day, that I'm still working through. A lot of people are like, oh, so-and-so taught you. I'm like, no, they didn't. No. It was like, why can't... Yeah, it's like, no, exactly. Exactly. It's always this like, oh, someone held your hand. Like, no, I was scolded. I was told you aren't paying attention. You need to pay attention more. Like, you need to figure this out. Like, you're taking too long. You need to go faster. And I wasn't even, I mean, I know this is an adult conversation. I didn't hit puberty yet. I wasn't even biologically a woman. Like, I wasn't even like biological. I didn't hit puberty yet. I mean, I was like 10 years old, and I was like, okay, because you're a kid, and my parents, the caregivers, adults around me were adult authorities. And that was like a big thing. So when he said that, it was like, you're not good enough trigger. And through my healing, I realized the adults and the caregivers that were giving me these traumas, that's the other piece of the puzzle that I realized in my healing, is that traumas are hereditary and they are passed on.
Yes.
So the generation before me, unfortunately, a lot of them did not do the work I'm doing. And they passed it on me. And this is another triggering phrase for me. I imagine you've heard it. We've all, some people have heard it. They're doing the best with what they have.
Yes.
That phrase triggered me so badly for so long. And unfortunately, I lost my mom in 2019. She left this world before she was able to do the work I'm doing right now. And she, at least when she left this world, she was making the choice not to do this work. And it is a daily decision to respect my mother. And it's a daily decision to respect that she was doing the best at what she had.
Yeah.
When she was saying, you need to move faster, you need to pay attention. Yes, it was a trauma, but it was not meant to be a trauma.
Yeah.
It was her wanting me to be the best version of me. It was her recognizing something she couldn't identify in me. It was like, I want this kid to shine at any cost. And it is a constant choice to look at that. But at the same time, it's also healthy for me to be angry sometimes and to be frustrated sometimes, because it was trauma. And that's also what I do in my books, is my characters experience both negative and positive feelings. And it's not squashing the negative feelings. It's accepting them and working through them, because it is healthy to feel negative. Because by working through the negative and accepting the negative, we actually get to positive. And that's the other big thing about my mom being gone, is respecting the fact it's a constant decision for me to respect. And I do, as a Catholic, I do believe in heaven. I do believe in God. I know he's hugging my mom, and it's me respecting that she's happy. She's really happy up there. And it's hard because, like, there are days where I get angry and I want my mom. My little girl comes out, and it always happens during Mass. It's always during Mass. It's always during the homily, when, like, after the gospel, where I'm like, God, I miss my mom. I want my mom, and that little girl still comes out, and it's like she wants her mommy. But then again, it's also this respect of, like, knowing she's happy, she's healthy, she's safe. And again, it really, I think the biggest step, at least I can speak from my personal experience, other people that I've talked to, is being able to identify those feelings and being able to take a step back. And like I said, after, I think it's been like 7 years since I first got introduced to the feelings list. And 7 years is not a long time. I recognize that, because I realize there are people I've met on my journey that have been doing this a lot longer for themselves and others. But I'm still pulling up that list. Like, wait, how do you feel about this?
Yeah.
Like,
I have mine on my refrigerator.
Yes.
Mine is on the refrigerator for the kids also. Like, I had got mine from my therapist too, and it sits, and it has like the different kind of faces that goes with each emotion.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a skill, it's a skill to recognize it. And it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving how we feel. And also, even our communication patterns are constantly evolving. Like, the way we're communicating right now is different from an hour from now. It's different from a week from now. It's different from a year from now. And it's hard. It's hard.
Especially with text messaging and messaging, like, because I tell my kids, like, all the time, like, when we're texting people, like, it all depends on the mood that the person on the other side of the phone is reading. And you can pick up their phone, they could be in a bad mood, and you can say, "What are you doing?" And they can hear, "What are you doing?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't, you better put a smiley face behind that. Like, what are you doing?
Yes,
and put a smiley face. Make sure you have this. Emojis is the best thing. So emoji can communicate a lot too. So if you're not sure how the other person's going to receive it, and you're coming in a good manner, make sure you add an emoji or something inside of that text message or email or something that communicate that you're not coming from a hostile place. because you just don't know how the receiver, what mindset or emotional state that receiver is in.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you in the sense of texting. Like, don't get me wrong, I text all the time. However, if it's a really important conversation, and I've had this happen with ex-boyfriends, I've had it happen with my family, friends, I say, I don't talk about this over text. I've learned to set that boundary.
That's smart. Yeah.
Because people miscommunicate. The other thing that I've learned too is that if a friend is going through a hard time and I'm not sure how they're doing, I use hearts. I don't use emojis because I don't want to seem insensitive. Like, and the other thing I'm learning too is respecting people and how they experience things. Like, so having lost a parent, you know, I recognize that people were communicating with me the way they thought I needed to be communicated to. And it was I clearly felt frustrated because I felt like everyone was telling me how to feel, how to do this. And I was so frustrated the entire time. And sometimes I was just, for lack of a better word, baffled and confused because people, I'd say, I lost my mom, and people look at me like, oh yeah, I had a cup of coffee today. I'm like, I just said I lost my mom. Like, what's going, I mean, they didn't say cup of coffee. They actually said they lost a family member, but it was like a distant, like long distant uncle or something. I'm like, my mother, my mom, like, you know, so there's all these miscommunications. And I actually
just find that they were just trying to find a common a ground to relate with you on, and they didn't know how. So they was like, well, I'll try to find a way to understand your pain so you don't feel alone in this process. So I'm going to say, oh, I lost somebody too, so you don't feel alone. But not knowing that makes you feel like, okay, do they really understand the pain that I'm going through right now? Like a cousin and an aunt, a mother is not the same. But it was just them trying to find a way to empathize with you.
Exactly.
But we don't get it when we're in pain, and when we're in a specific mode, like it's hard to filter. It's hard to filter. Like, I'm going through pain. Like, when you're in trauma, it's hard to filter things through the trauma because all you see is the trauma. All you see is the experience that you're going through at that moment. So you don't see the efforts, or you don't take that time back to step back and see how people are actually trying to help you. But you're like, this is not helping. You're just making the situation. Just get away from me. And not on purpose, but everybody's just trying to, like you said, that triggering where everybody's just trying to do the best with what they got.
Yeah. And that's where I've learned to recognize that I wasn't wrong to be upset. I wasn't wrong to see what they're saying as insensitive. But I also learned to say, hey, you're not helping. Like, this is not helping. And I also learned to say, okay, you know what? If these people are going to function this way, I'm not going to spend time with them. I have a choice and responsibility to find a tribe that's going to identify with me. Like, I actually have a very good friend right now who's going through a family who has a father that's very ill. And I called her either last week or the week before, and I don't know where he is. The last time I heard from her, she put her dad into hospice. And so, you know, I called just to, you know, just left a voice message saying, hey, I'm thinking of you, and I haven't heard back. And that's like another thing, is respecting her space, you know, and I probably will wait a little while longer to call back, because my first thought was like, gosh, should I look up the newspaper? Should I ask my sister if I can crash with her? So I then borrow my dad's car so I can try to like pop in, and, you know, because I'm in a different state. But then I thought, no, just let it sit, you know, and, but it is learning how other people communicate and understanding that sometimes silence is a form of communication. Sometimes silence is like, I need one less person to talk to right now, or like, I can't speak to you right now, and being able to respect that, you know. And I noticed that with my own immediate family. Like, I read their, you know, I do step back and read body languages. You know, one of the biggest things, because I'm an aunt and I'm a godmother, and my friend's little girl is my godchild. And I swear to God, we were separated another lifetime. Like, we're both very artistic. we're both girly girls. I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, let's do those little stickers. Like, let's do it all day. And then my sister's a little boy who I just love to the moon. And I love all the kids to the moon and back. Like it's not like it's one kid I love more than the other. I love them all. But my nephew, I'm a toucher. I love through touch. I like to be loved through touch. That's like one of my major love languages. I've noticed with my nephew, he's more acts of service and quality time. And it is a conscious decision not to clobber the poor kid every time I see him, and he's only 2.5. So like, he's still like developing and whatnot. But then also too, I've noticed with being an aunt, especially when it's your blood, I ask my sister and brother-in-law questions. And I've done this with my girlfriends for years and my guy friends for years. Like I always ask questions, but I've noticed, especially with my sister, is that by asking questions, like when I'm around my nephew and he'll hold out his hand, that means I want you to come with me. He wants to hold your hand and bring it with me. And my sister told me, I'm like, oh, got it. And then he does more. And the first time he did the sign language, I thought it was more, but I made the choice to ask my sister, does this mean more? Yeah. And I saw it as me respecting, this is her child. She's with him day and night. She's living and breathing this. And that's that way. And I'm also a gifter. That's my love language. That's the way I love through gifts. And I noticed with that too, like just asking questions, like what does he like? What do you guys like? And my brother-in-law, and I'm a huge fan of it too. We all love the Hungry Caterpillar. It's one of my brother-in-law's favorites. And so he also loves Little Blue Truck. So I become a Little Blue Truck aficionado. Like I bought every book in the series. Like I have it on my wish list to meet the author so I could tell her my brother-in-law adores you. My nephew loves it too. Don't run people. My nephew loves it too. And he also loves Hungry Caterpillar. So between those two series, and I've always been a Hungry Caterpillar fan. But it's just so beautiful, those connection moments. And it also gives me a way to connect further with my sister and say, I joke, I say, the paper's for your son and the books for your husband. Because, at that age, they just want to rip the paper and whatnot. But there's something beautiful about recognizing and respecting each other's homes. And, again, you could say, oh, Kristina, it's just a book, but it's not just a book. It's something beautiful. Like my sister and her husband's first Father's Days, I did a gift because I felt like, I do cards after that, but like, I feel like the first one, and when they, and as the family grows, obviously I'll do something special on that child's like first Father's Day, Mother's Day. But I drew a picture for my sister of her dog that had just passed away and my nephew. But then my brother-in-law, I gave him a Little Blue Truck book. And I wrote, wishing you many happy reads, because that's something he does with his son. And getting that picture of my brother-in-law and nephew reading that book. And then, of course, my sister's caption said, you should have seen his face, and AKA, I mean, my husband, not my child. But there's something beautiful about that. And my nephew was at that age. He wasn't, he was about 6, maybe, no, a little more. I think he was about 6 months, 7 months at that point. And he maybe a little bit older, but he was sitting on his dad's lap and he had his hand down on his leg and he was able to sit himself up. And, that was such a big moment because it was like a month earlier that he really started sitting up on his own, and seeing him on his dad's lap, being able to hold himself up. It was just, you see, when you open your mind up to, when you open this path to communication, you're able to see all those beautiful things and all those beautiful wonders. It's a father and son bonding. It's a child growing into a full functioning human. It was just so much more than a book. It was so much more than a book and a present. It evolved into so many beautiful things. And it all came from that first step of pulling out that feelings list. Be like, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? And it all started from that one step. And it opened up all these beautiful doors. And there's so many other beautiful doors that's open too.
I totally agree. That emotional sheet is very, very, very useful. Like with me, I learned that when we go back to like with the parents and children relationship, I learned that a lot of like my parent, like you said, your parent was like, oh, you're not doing this, not enough, you're not good enough, you're not learning. I learned that maybe my mom didn't have an opportunity to be a child either. So all she knew was how to be adult. And a lot of us don't allow our kids to stay in children. Like, we think that they need to grow up, they need to be doing this, they need to be doing this, like at certain stage and certain time. Like, I want my children to be children as long as possible, as much as possible. Like, people are growing, this world is crazy enough. Give them the opportunity to experience that, because once you become, you only technically get like maybe 10, 12 years of good childhood, and then the rest of it is pretty much teenagerhood and adulthood and responsibility. That's the rest of your life. So that little 10 to 12 years that you do get, let them enjoy it. Let your kids enjoy that time.
Well, it's funny you say this, because that's where I recognize, especially as I'm writing, because the main character of the series is me. Bella is my nickname. I swear, if I were if I were an animal, I'd be an elephant, because I am like, I have this crazy memory, like, or just certain things about the elephant that just makes sense. Like, and Bella's been my nickname for like a million years now. And what I recognize was like healing from losing my mom, healing from things that we couldn't work through before she left this world. I do recognize that. I recognize that her inner child didn't come out and play. So, like, perfect example for anyone listening, and go, I'm adult, I don't play. Every time we go on our phone and scroll Instagram or Facebook, that's playing. Video games, that's playing. Doodling on our notepads, that's playing. And it's important to recognize that and make time for those things and let that little girl, little boy come out. And I recognize from my mom, she always said, oh, I'm not creative. I'm not creative. And then she had, and I'm the oldest of three. And then she had me, who's like overly creative. And it's like, dear God, what do I do with this kid? You know what I mean? I have this like overly creative daughter who does all this stuff. And I recognized too that as we got older, she lost outlets for that creativity. Like, for me personally, she would braid my hair and style my hair every morning. And when I would go into school, everyone would compliment me. But then I became a teenager, we lost that connection point. Another connection point she lost with all three of us too is my mom was a really, really amazing sewer. The book I'm actually working on right now, I'll give you guys a little sneak preview. It's a Halloween book. It's actually, even though it's book 8 that I'm doing, it's actually coming out this fall, which is why I'm like working on it now, because we changed the order and I'm like, shoot, I gotta do this one now. I thought it was going to come out next year. And then we thought, no, let's do it sooner. And I was like, okay, I can do it. I can make it work. And so Bella's mom is making her a Halloween costume, and it's going to be dedicated to my mom. My mom didn't just do Halloween costumes. She did dresses, pants, vests, suits, jackets. She designed these gorgeous Christmas dresses, and then a matching ensemble for our brother. She made our communion dress. She made prom dresses. But there was a big chunk of years where she wasn't sewing for us, because we got older. And I realized she lost that outlet, but she always had her cooking and baking, and even that, like, it wasn't, that was like her only outlet. But I realized as she started losing these outlets, that was a thing. And again, it was her choice. I respect her choice, but I recognize that now of me being gentle on her, because she was an amazing cook, and I'm grateful she was cooking all of those years. Like, again, I learned from watching her. It was like, come on, watch me, like, figure it out, kind of a thing. It wasn't this gentle, like everyone, but she held my hand. I'm like, no, it was like, Kristina, you watched me this a million times, like, figure it out. But she was a fantastic sewer. I mean, she did some really, really beautiful work. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that work. And we still have quite a few of those pieces in my father's cedar closet, which I'm very grateful for. And when my nephew's old enough, and when I have children, as the family grows, like, I hope we're able to pull out those pieces and show them what their grandmother did, because it really was spectacular.
That would be awesome. That would be great. That would be a great moment for the kids. Now, before we end this episode, I would love for you to give some advice to the listeners that can help them with their communication.
Sure, absolutely. So one thing I would like to share with your audience actually is I do have a coloring drawing for your audience. I always design coloring drawings to go along with each of my books. Coloring is a great activity, not only for the child, but also for the adult. It relaxes us, it frees our mind, and it also opens up that space to have conversations and to be in a steady rhythm and allow that inner child to play. So I love to share that with your audience. I'll make sure I get that to you. If you wanted something deeper, I do recommend Googling the feelings list and downloading it. You actually gave me an idea because you were talking about how you have it with the faces for your kids. And I thought, gosh, I should create a feelings list with Bella and Bella's faces. Because as I'm drawing her, like that's something that I actually work on when she's feeling sad. Like I play with her eyebrows and I play with the way like her mouth turns and whatnot. Because it's much easier to draw a smiling elephant than it is to draw an upset elephant or a frustrated elephant or bewildered elephant. So I hope to, I would love to share that with you when I'm able to pull that together. I think I would love for you to see it as see that. But yes, I highly recommend. Obviously, I have my coloring drawing as a gift to all of you, but I take it a step further. I do encourage you to download that feelings list. If you wanted something even further than that, like the other work I've done, there are deeper books out there than what I'm doing. Like I am not a therapist. That's not my jam. I really believe I am a creative. And that's why I write from my imagination. I also write from my own personal life. And I feel it's important to shine the beauty on my journey and also the beauty that communication has brought. And, looking for whether it's a book for you and your child or a book for you that focuses on communication. But then also another big step, if you're interested in going a step further, is I personally am an ACA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics. And you can Google it. There is a website. It's international, worldwide. The next step after reading is either speaking to someone, a therapist that can take you a step further, but also being in a room with people like you and I that have gone through this and can relate, because it's from being in those rooms that I've been able to write the series that I'm writing. And it's through being in those rooms that I realized the importance of working through your negative feelings, not squashing them, not throwing them out the window, accepting, dealing with them, but then also working your way towards those positive feelings and making that choice.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you please tell everyone where they can find you on social media, your website and everything?
Yes, absolutely. My website is www.tripplecokl.com. I am on social. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I do have a LinkedIn. I have a TikTok as well. I have it all. So I'll be sure to send you those links to make it easier for you. I'll make sure I send. And I'm on Pinterest too. I'm on Pinterest as well.
Yeah, all those links will be in the show notes. So just make sure y'all go down there and click so y'all can explore her social medias and her website, so y'all can see those books and get that information in that coloring paper. So
yes. Yeah, amazing. I highly believe in coloring. The reason why I believe in it too is this is a story. This is my story. So people that have been through this work know what I'm talking about when you say you have a story, but I always feel it's important because people have actually said this to me. Well, Kristina, you draw, and I'm also a crocheter, and I'm a knitter, and I do all these different. I'm also a competitive dancer. Like, you have all these outlets, and I'm like, so I feel like coloring and doodling, we can all do it. We can all do it. You know what I mean? It's something we can all do because it's so easy for me to say, oh, just go do this. And I can't tell you how many times, because as a baker and a cook, people are like, come on, Kristina, is it really easy or is it easy for you? And I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like that, that moment. And you realize again, but it also goes back to what we said about being patient with others and listening to like, okay, what are they looking for? And it is a skill. It's a skill I'm constantly working on. I haven't got, and we're human. We're never really quite have it all together, because that's the beauty of being human, is always have that space to learn and evolve.
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you again for coming out and blessing the listeners with your story. And remember, guys, to check the links out below.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it for this episode of Sisters Love Podcast. But before we end, I want to invite you to our new support group. This group is exclusive for podcast listeners. This is the perfect place for women to come together, share experiences, and ask questions, and also get access to exclusive resources. This group, you will be able to meet some of those amazing guests that you watch on the podcast. And just to let you know, this is a judge-free zone place. So you will never have to worry about feeling unheard or alone ever again. To get access to the group, all you have to do is join our waiting list. You can do that by clicking the link below. And once you sign up, you'll get instant access to the support group. So until next time, your sister through love. Love you.